Morning, everybody. Our guys in the back ready to go? Everything's working today? Good stuff. All right, let's call this meeting to order. Good morning. And I'm Bill Steele, I'm Chair of the Police Services Board. This time I can read, if I could read the land acknowledgement statement. We begin the meeting this morning by acknowledging that the Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara Police Services Board stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. I'm going to do a roll call, and Member Eek is not with us today. Member D'Angela?
Present.
Member Gale?
Present.
Member Gibson?
I'm here.
Member Lawson?
Present.
Member McKendrick?
Present.
Any conflicts of interest today? None? Adoption of the minutes here, the minutes of the public board meeting held Tuesday, July 19th, 2022. If I could have members Gale and Gibson move those minutes. Are there any questions? Anyone opposed? Those are carried. Report from the board chair. On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome David Tilley to our meeting. David is with the Inspectorate of Policing at the Ministry of the Solicitor General, and he serves as a policing services advisor to police boards in Ontario. Over the past 7 years, David served as a police services advisor to Zone 2 in Eastern Ontario and Zone 6 in Southwestern Ontario, and is now assigned to Zone 4. David joined the Inspectorate of Policing in 2015, bringing with him over 16 years of experience in the police and justice field, working across Canada, the UK, and Europe. He held two previous positions with the Ministry of the Solicitor General as a Policing Standards Development Officer and team lead of the Public Standards Section. He's at our meeting today as part of a routine visit by police services advisors to police boards across the province, and the board looks forward to working with David. We're pleased that he is attending our meeting here today. We also look forward to his continued participation at future board meetings. And I spoke to David earlier. David, you want to come up and share a few words with us? Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. You kind of read off my bio a bit. So like I said, although I've been newly assigned to Zone 4, I've actually been in this role for about 7 years now, first in Eastern Ontario and then Southwest Ontario. So I say to boards and chiefs, there isn't much I haven't seen during that time. So I hope to bring some of that experience to help you and obviously assist you in any way that I can. Previous to my time in this, like I said, I've been at the ministry, did lots of work on the to renew the new Police Services Act and the Community Safety and Policing Act. So again, I hope to help in that transition when it eventually comes, hopefully within the next few months or so. Obviously, I'm an import. I came to Ontario in 2010. I tend to find it takes a couple of meetings before you'll be really tuning into what I'm saying. So during that time, I'll try and talk slowly, but really looking forward to being here. And it's nice to finally be in my home zone. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, David. Any questions to David? Any comments? No? Good. Thank you. The Niagara Regional Police Service, in partnership with the Hamilton Police Service and the Ontario Women in Law Enforcement, hosted the 59th International Association Women Police Conference from September the 12th to 16th at the Falls View Casino Convention Center in Niagara Falls. The conference attracted approximately 900 delegates from over 40 countries from across the world, and it was the largest gathering of female law enforcement globally. On behalf of the board, Member Lawson and I had the privilege and honor of participating in the opening ceremonies and the Parade of Nations with uniformed and civilian women in law enforcement marching in the tourist core of Niagara Falls while displaying their national flags. It was amazing, Jen. We did get poured on for a couple of times, but
We did.
A parade that long, and it was pretty cool watching the tourists wave, clap, photos, videos, all kinds of stuff. It was amazing. September 8th, the service held a recruit graduation ceremony to welcome 7 new recruits and 1 currently serving member to the Niagara Regional Police Service and 2 new recruits to the Niagara Parks Police. I attended the ceremony on behalf of the board to congratulate the officers and extend the board's best wishes. Member Lawson was elected to the Board of Directors of the Canadian Association of Police Governors for a 2-year term at its annual general meeting held on September the 1st of 2022. The CAPG is the only national organization dedicated to excellence in police governance in Canada. It has been in existence for 33 years, working to improve the effectiveness of civilian bodies that govern local police services. Today, the CAPG represents 80% of the municipal police service oversight bodies throughout Canada. This is a great appointment for the Police Services Board, the entire police community in Niagara region. It also continues a great tradition of public service by Niagara board members well beyond the boundaries of just our region. This will be the first time our board has combined representation at both the national and provincial levels for police governance, with member Gibson serving as a director on the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards. Our board looks forward to contributing to the important advocacy work to improve police governance and enhance public safety, both provincially and nationally. Again, congratulations, Jen. Thank you. The Canadian Association of Police Governance Annual Conference was held from September 9th to 11th and was hosted by the Saskatoon Board of Police Commissioners. The theme of the conference was community partnerships and engagement, and participants had the opportunity to hear from police leaders about key issues and emerging trends that will help strengthen police governance throughout Canada's local communities. Board members participated virtually in these conference sessions. The Canadian Association of Police Governance hosts monthly webinars as part of its educational strategy to keep police boards and police executives across Canada apprised of issues currently impacting the policing community. Since our last meeting in July, board members participated in 5 webinars related to police governance and civilian oversight. There is a webinar scheduled at noon today on artificial intelligence and police policy, privacy and operations, and October 18th for an update on the implementation of body-worn cameras. On September 23rd at 9 a.m., the service will be hosting an opening ceremony to commemorate the new #1 District Police Facility at 198 Welland Avenue in St. Catharines. About time. The pandemic is over, I guess. Board members will be attending the official ceremony, which will include opening remarks from key dignitaries and the placement of the time capsules from the old 1 District facility at 68 Church Street to the new building. The event will be live streamed for public viewing on the NRPS website. On September 28th, the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards will be holding their Zone 4 quarterly meeting from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. by Zoom. Zone 4 consists of a total of 14 police service boards, including municipal and OPP contract boards and First Nations police governance bodies that are located within the regions of the counties of Brant, Haldimand, Halton, Hamilton, Niagara, Norfolk, and Oxford. These quarterly engagements allow boards with a certain geographic area to meet for the purpose of discussing matters related to police governance. The next committee meeting is scheduled for October 13th, and the next board meeting will be held Thursday, October the 27th. Both meetings are being held in the community room right here at Niagara Regional Police Headquarters, and they will both begin at 9 a.m. That ends my report. Are there any questions or comments? Great, thanks. Next is the report from the chief. Chief.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. As the Chair still previously mentioned, I wanted to take a moment to reflect on the success of the recent International Association of Women in Police conference that we hosted in collaboration with Hamilton Police Service and the Ontario Women in Law Enforcement here in Niagara Falls last week. Almost 900 women in law enforcement, along with their allies, gathered for 5 days of training that was incredibly empowering and insightful. I had the opportunity to speak with many delegates who came from around the world, including Ghana, Ukraine, United Kingdom, who all really spoke about the success of the conference and the powerful message of connect, empowering, and leading women. As a male leader within our service that has typically been a male-dominated profession, it's crucial that we're no longer just allies, but we serve as supporters and advocate for female police officers, ensuring that they have an active and vocal seat at the table. We had a Niagara delegation of 40 members who were able to take in the keynote speakers and the valuable breakout sessions. I want to personally recognize Staff Sergeant Sarah Rose. I know she's going to really appreciate me embarrassing her this morning. who along with Inspector Andrea Torrey were the co-chairs for the conference, who did just an exceptional job organizing the entire conference over the last several years, did an amazing job and delivered a world-class conference that not only showcased the professionalism of the service, but also all the sights and sounds and beauty that Niagara has to offer. I'd also like to provide the board with an update with regards to our mobile crisis response team pilot program that's been in place in 3 districts since April of this year. The program follows in the pathway of successful full-time mobile crisis response programs in 1 and 2 districts, where our officers are partnered with a mental health professional from the Canadian Mental Health Association. The expansion of the program to 3 districts was particularly significant due to the relative scarcity of mental health resources in Welland and Pelham compared to our other larger cities within the Niagara region. Since April 1st of 2022, the MCERT teams in 3 districts have responded to 260 calls and have served 161 persons in crisis. There have been 186 occasions where the MCERT team has been able to divert the individual rather than apprehending them under the Mental Health Act. Mental Health Act apprehensions routinely tie up 2 officers for sometimes well over an hour while they wait for the hospital to assess and admit the patient. More importantly, those 260 calls are all anecdotal evidence of the benefits of the MCERT response. Every one its own success story. Stories about people from all walks of life, social economic circumstance, dealing with challenges and stressors, struggling to cope with suffering a range of mental health issues being successfully dealt with in a crisis situation and connected with appropriate support services. The MCERT program remains an example of synergy that occurs when the police and mental health professionals team up to accomplish more in more situations that either could manage effectively on their own. The grant funding that made this pilot project potentially ends on March 31st, 2023. And I wanted to highlight to you the success and value that we've experienced with the pilot project to date. Of course, the service and the CMHA remain optimistic that the province will announce further opportunities for grant funding so that we can continue to offer this critically important program to the residents of South Niagara. Just talk a little bit about our homicide and attempt homicide statistics year to date. During the reporting period, because we didn't meet in August, from July 19th until September the 16th, we had 1 homicide that occurred, and we had 2 attempt homicides during that time as well. So year to date, we've had 6 homicides for the year so far, and 7 attempt murders that have occurred here in the Niagara region. You know, comparatively speaking, we had 6 homicides in all of 2021, 5 in 2020, 7 in 2019, and 2 in 2018. Just wanted to provide a little bit of information with regards to those homicide and attempt murders that occurred during that time frame. So further to the homicide that occurred in Niagara Falls back on April the 8th of 2022, stemming from a shooting near the Great Canadian Midway on Clifton Hill on Tuesday, July the 19th, 2022, homicide detectives arrested a 17-year-old male youth from Mississauga and have charged him with the following offenses: 2 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, robbery, discharge with a firearm with intent, 2 counts, reckless discharge of a firearm, possession of a firearm in a motor vehicle, possession of property obtained by crime, theft of motor vehicle. Furthermore, on Wednesday, August the 10th, homicide detectives arrested an 18-year-old male from Mississauga and charged him with the following offenses: robbery, unauthorized possession of a firearm, possession of a firearm in a motor vehicle, possession of property obtained by crime, theft of a motor vehicle, and failing to comply with an undertaking under the Criminal Code of Canada. I just wanted to highlight that this was a particularly brazen shooting that took place in a very public location with a high volume of pedestrians in the area. And I want to take a moment to highlight the exceptional work of all of the investigators that worked on this homicide, and thank them for their unwavering resolve, dedication, and commitment. On August 27th, at approximately 1:30 a.m., one district uniform officers attended for an assist ambulance call in the area of Queenston Street and Riordan Street for a man in medical distress. The male made no mention of being assaulted and reported to officers that he had fallen. He was subsequently transported to hospital by Niagara EMS. The male's health quickly deteriorated and he was transported to the Hamilton General Hospital for treatment as he was diagnosed as suffering from a serious brain bleed. A physician at Hamilton General advised that there was evidence that the male had been assaulted. Thereafter, one district CIB commenced an investigation into this matter and coordinated with our forensic services unit and homicide unit. On September 8th, 2022, unfortunately, the male died from his injuries, and the homicide unit has now taken carriage of this investigation. On September 3rd, 2022, at 4:25 a.m., two district officers responded to the area of Eastwood Crescent and Ontario Avenue in the city of Niagara Falls regarding a stabbing that had just occurred. Upon arrivals, officers located the adult female victim suffering from multiple stab wounds. Niagara EMS paramedics attended the scene and ultimately transported the victim in serious but stable condition to an out-of-town trauma center for advanced medical care. Two district detectives have assumed carriage of this investigation, and they've learned that the victim met the male suspect in the area of Falls Avenue and Clifton Hill in the city of Niagara Falls approximately 20 minutes prior to the assault. The victim and the suspect left in the suspect's pickup truck. The victim was stabbed shortly thereafter in the area of Eastwood Crescent and Ontario Avenue. The victim and the suspect are not known to one another. As a result of the investigation, a suspect was identified. On September 13th, 2022, detectives arrested 32-year-old male suspect and charged him with attempted murder. The victim in this matter has been released from hospital and continues to recover from her really significant injuries. Again, great work by all officers involved, the frontline officers and their initial response, and particularly the great work of our two district detectives in identifying the person responsible for this violent crime. On September the 7th at approximately 1:38 a.m., two district uniform officers were called to a report of a shooting on Summer Street near Main Street in Niagara Falls. Once on scene, officers located a male victim laying on the street suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. The male victim in his 20s was treated at the scene by Niagara EMS paramedics and transported to a local hospital. He was later flown to an out-of-region trauma hospital for further care in critical condition. The investigation by officers has determined a possible black sport utility vehicle and a possible black sedan were seen leaving the area of the shooting at a high rate of speed. Two district detectives and detectives from our forensic services unit are continuing with their investigation of this incident. And detectives, I would add as well, have reason to believe that this was not a random incident. During the reporting period of July 1st to August 31st, there were two fatal motor vehicle collisions, and there were fortunately no fatal collisions. Sorry, those were in July, and there were no fatal collisions in the month of August. And there were no life-threatening injury motor vehicle collisions in either July or August. Year to date, we're trending favorably. We have 10 fatal collisions that have occurred to date. Comparatively, in all of last year, we had 21, 16 in 2020, 13 in years 2018 and 2019, and we had 16 in year 2017. Just a little bit about those collisions. On July 2nd, 2022, at approximately 10:07 p.m., 2 district uniform officers and EMS personnel responded to a report of a pedestrian having been struck by a pickup truck at the intersection of Welland Street and Willoughby Drive in Niagara Falls. Officers arrived on scene to find a female pedestrian in critical condition. The female victim, in her 70s, was treated at the scene by bystanders, members of the Niagara Falls Fire Service, and EMS paramedics prior to being transported to a local hospital. Despite resuscitative efforts, the female unfortunately was pronounced deceased. The investigation determined that the victim had been on the roadway when she was struck by a pickup truck that fled the area without stopping. Excuse me. Detectives from the collision reconstruction unit subsequently located and seized the involved vehicle. On July 14th, the driver of the vehicle, a 45-year-old Niagara Falls male, was arrested and charged with the following offenses: failed to stop at the scene of an accident and careless driving causing death. On Saturday, July the 9th at 10:35 p.m., 2 district uniform officers responded with Niagara EMS paramedics and members of the Niagara-on-the-Lake Fire Department for reports of a single vehicle collision on York Road near Concession Road in the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake. Upon arrival, officers located a single vehicle that left the roadway and overturned. An adult female was pronounced deceased at the scene. An adult male, who was determined to be the driver, was extricated from the vehicle by members of the fire department and subsequently transferred to hospital. And he was subsequently released from hospital with minor injuries. On Friday, July the 15th, detectives from our collision reconstruction unit arrested and charged 38-year-old St. Catharines male with impaired operation of a conveyance causing death, impaired operation of a conveyance exceeding alcohol concentration. And just a few items in the news. On Sunday, July the 24th, 2 district uniform officers were called to a hotel in the city of Niagara Falls following a break and enter. When officers arrived, they located a male and female in one of the rooms who were not guests of the hotel. Information of a firearm in the room led to the evacuation of neighboring rooms while detectives investigated. Shortly thereafter, the male and female were taken into custody. They are now facing over 20 charges collectively, ranging from possession of a prohibited or restricted firearm with ammunition to possession for the purpose of trafficking. On Monday, August 22nd, 1 district uniform officers with the Niagara Regional Police Service responded to a report of a stabbing incident in St. Catharines. Officers attended the area of Albert Street and Lake Street in St. Catharines, where paramedics were treating a male victim for serious stab wounds. He was transported to hospital in stable condition. Investigation by 1 district detectives found that the male had been involved in an altercation at a nearby residence, during which time he was stabbed multiple times. Shortly after, a 48-year-old St. Catharines male suspect was identified, arrested, and charged with aggravated assault. On August 23rd, an officer from the NRPS Mobile Support Unit began a fraud investigation in relation to an incident in the city of Welland. The officer spoke with an elderly male complainant who advised that he believed he had been scammed of $9,000 cash the previous day. The investigation determined that the complainant had received a phone call from an unknown suspect claiming to be a grandchild in legal peril. A second unknown suspect came on the phone and claimed to be a lawyer. The complainant agreed to pay the legal bills and attended his local bank and withdrew the money. Later that day, a courier came to his home and collected the money. While the officer was investigating the matter, the unknown suspects contacted the complainant again, demanding another $10,000. Detectives from the 3 District Street Crime Unit and Detective Office became involved in the investigation, identifying and arresting 2 males from the Toronto area, each charged with fraud over $5,000. Again, we just want to continue to educate the public regarding these fraud scams with and further information can be found on our Niagara Regional Police website at niagarapolice.ca. On Tuesday, September the 6th, the Niagara Regional Police conducted its 22nd annual Back to School Traffic Safety and Awareness Day. The goal of this initiative is to remind drivers about safe driving habits that can help protect the lives of citizens in Niagara. Each year, senior officers and those who work in our specialty units across the service, not regularly assigned to uniform patrol duties, put on their uniforms and head out to the local schools to take part in this Traffic Safety and Awareness Day. In addition to the general uniform patrol, another 45 officers took part in this initiative. For the officers that participated in this initiative, many of them advised that the majority of drivers were driving cautiously around school zones. This year, a total of 97 tickets and warnings were issued. 29 tickets were issued for speeding, 2 for not wearing their seatbelts properly, and 1 for distracted driving. 3 other drivers were charged with driving while under suspension, and another 2 charged with operating their vehicles with no insurance. In September of 2022, detectives from our child abuse unit commenced an investigation into allegations of sexual assault. On September 9th, the male was arrested and charged in relation to a 13-year-old female victim. The alleged assault is believed to have occurred between May 2022 to September 22, when it was reported to police. 39-year-old Niagara Falls male was arrested and charged with several offenses, as well as abduction of a person under 14. Through their investigation, detectives have reason to believe that social media was utilized to contact further victims and are asking for anyone with information to contact them in the child abuse unit. Again, long report, I apologize for that, but it's been a couple of months since I reported last. And it certainly highlights the prevalence of violence in particular that is being seen on the streets of Niagara, unfortunately, with the number of stabbings and shootings that I reported on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Questions to the Chief on his report? Member Gale?
Thank you, Chief, and through you to the, thank you, Chair, and through you to the Chief. I have one pleasant question and one more serious. The pleasant question, when I look at you, Chief, I look over your left shoulder and I see Sarah Rose sitting in the back there with her beautiful smile. She thought she was coming here and not saying a word. Oh, yeah. But we hear from you, Chief, and we hear from the Chair, we hear from myself and other board members, but it's refreshing to have somebody new here. May I ask, with your permission, if Sarah could come to the podium and just reflect on what happened with the women's in police event, and to be fair, Sarah, she's walking now. To be fair, Sarah, I'll give you a couple. Come on up, please. I'll give you a couple minutes to reflect on, to think about what you're going to say, because I have another serious question, Chief, about MCERT. When MCERT came into play, one of the things that sold us on it 7 years ago, was a picture of the Hamilton police force in front of a hospital with 15 cruisers sitting there, and we knew how long to download patients. That's wording I'm using, but I think it's correct in there, and the paperwork that has to be filled out. And one of the selling factors on this was it's easier to get into the hospitals now because you have a mental health worker in the cruiser to fill out the computers or whatever and get it through. Is this happening? Are we working hand in hand with the hospital? Less cruisers at hospitals?
Chief?
Through you, Chair, I would say that we've got a great partnership with Niagara Health, and they're obviously dealing with very challenging times now with their staffing issues with COVID and whatnot. They do their best to try and expedite getting our officers in and out of the hospital as quickly as possible. There are times with their own staffing challenges with the fact that security guards who are brought in to relieve our officers so that they can get back out onto the streets. There are times when they're not readily available, so it does result in delays. But we have, again, a great relationship where we can, through a protocol that's been developed, we can speak with the charge nurse and try and expedite any situation where officers are there for a prolonged period of time. Again, we recognize their staffing challenges as well as our own. But I would say in the MCERT program has delivered on all that we had hoped it would do so.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure you weren't going to say we see no improvement, but it is an improvement. I understand the staffing issues. Thank you for that answer. Yep. Sarah, I'm sorry to corner you like this or center you out if you want to call it this way, but you're paid to talk to the public. And so please reflect on what happened.
I thank you very much. And through you, Chair, I just want to first off thank the board for their support. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have been there without you and our command staff, Chief and both deputies. You stand with me, you stand by me, you push me forward every day, and I appreciate that. The teamwork, collaboration with our entire committee was amazing to watch happen. We have some phenomenal women within our organization and a lot of allies as well that support us and allow us to shine every day. Member Lawson, it was wonderful to sit and have lunch with you. I really enjoyed speaking with you as well, Chair. It was wonderful. I think with the delegates from Niagara that were able to attend, they were able to see the importance of leadership and that they can see themselves in roles within the leadership team. And I think that will really speak volumes to their future. The internal support network that we were able to establish from our delegates will benefit for years to come. So we'll just add on that and keep moving forward. And yeah, I appreciate you letting me say a few words. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I'm done, but if anybody else has questions of Sarah, please.
Certainly. Anyone? No. Sarah.
Oh, come on.
Again, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Got to still be tired, Sarah.
Yes, I'm exhausted, emotionally exhausted, but I'm looking forward to my new role within the service. So always moving forward and helping others along the way. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Just for the board's benefit, Sarah will be leaving she served the last couple of years as the Deputy Chief's Executive Officer, and she is now the Staff Sergeant in charge of our Major Crime and Homicide Unit. First female officer to hold that position. So we're incredibly proud of Sarah in that new role.
Great. Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, Chief, you shouldn't put somebody right through like that, but I can see her smile. Because when you made your comments, I knew she didn't want to come up here, but she was coming. Thank you.
Great. Member McKendrick.
Thank you. And thank you, Sarah, for your leadership in that role. So I wanted to take us back to the Mobile Crisis Rapid Response Team and maybe build on what the chief has shared with Member Gale, that the diversion, so the 186 diversions from hospital means a reduction in ER volume, which then is an impact on our entire community for any of us going to the ER, because those are 186 visits that didn't go to the ER, where normally or historically, the only option for our officers would be to take to hospital. So there is definitely an impact there. But I originally put up my hand to echo the sentiments and thank the chief for the empathy and representation of the challenges being lived by our community members and the impact that the Mobile Crisis Rapid Response Team can have. I share the optimism that there'll be future opportunity to continue that funding to keep it in 3 district, given the recognized need and improved outcomes for the individuals that our teams, the system, the hospital being part of that system, and most importantly, the members of our community coming in contact with that program that we experience and we witness. So thank you for your advocacy and a very empathetic and good representation of the challenges in our community and the opportunities to make that different and better for people. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any further questions? Member D'Angelo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just through you to the chief, following up on the back to school program. I'm not sure if you have numbers from the past, but are we trending upwards with fines and warnings that have been issued from previous years?
I don't have that data in front of me, but I can certainly get that to you. I think this year we, again, because of some operational exigencies that were going on at the time, we didn't have as many officers as we would have had in the past, but and our numbers may be slightly lower than they have been in past years, but I'll get that data for you.
Yeah, I didn't through Mr. Chair. Yeah, I didn't expect you if you had an idea if you're trending, if you can get some numbers. Just in curiosity, because I know there's probably some hot spots that might have had more warnings or tickets issued. Is that something that you would go back at a future date? Because I know there's a heightened awareness in the first week of everyone going back to school, but then sometimes people get back into the patterns of the past. So did they learn anything from those warnings or tickets? And has that transpired into a safer area for students in the community zones or around schools? So is that something that you may look at if you determine that there's an area that had quite a bit of extensive warnings or tickets from previous years that you might want to go back and revisit to see if those things have had an impact, or if we have to look at some other method working with the school board to improve that situation?
So through you, Chair, I think the data is particularly helpful for our traffic enforcement unit. They review the data on a very regular basis and are aware of all of the hot spots. They've also got a 1-800 tip line where members of the public can call in tips where there are concerns about traffic safety, and they're very responsive to those calls. Obviously, we want to have our officers positioned in a location where they're being as effective as they can be, and anything that we can do to enhance traffic safety and reduce collisions is a priority for the service.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, that's a good answer. Thank you. I appreciate that, because I know citizens are very concerned, especially if they, like I know myself, I live near a school. In that first day of school, the traffic is just phenomenal because you have crossing guards, and some people aren't used to that. So there's a lot of honking and horns and people upset, but that's part of the process. They have to learn that, when school's back in, you have to be a little bit more patient and work through that. So I'm glad to hear that you've done an excellent job regarding that, reminding people, especially the warnings, like if someone gets a warning, hopefully they take that to heart and then realize later that it's a safety matter, not just a speeding matter. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And ultimately the goal is to change people's behaviors, and that's continues to be our goal going forward. So thank you.
Thanks. Member Gibson?
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Chief, you made a comment there that I found very interesting, and it's something I've been kind of reading on and watching, is the increase in violence in society. And I see that kind of in a global aspect, that the whole world is getting a little bit more angry and that sort of thing. So one of the things I think that we need to plan for in the future is more resources having to go to the violent crimes that are possibly going to increase. And the result of that is, and I hear out in Wainfleet quite often, is that we can never get a police car, and which of course is just someone's opinion at the time. But I often say they're busy tied up on crimes against people right now, with the violence, the stabbings, and they don't understand the resources involved to deal with those crimes. So as we move forward as a police service, it's something I think that we need to really pay attention to, is that more resources will be going to violent crimes, which leaves less resources to go to the smaller calls for service that the public sends in. So how we deal with that, that's your job, how to figure that out. But I think as time moves forward here, everything I read and see is we are becoming a little bit angrier out there in society, which equals more violence. So something I think that we're going to have to be dealing with down the road. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Further questions or comments? Seeing none. On to item 7 presentations. We have 2 this morning. First is item 7.1, Crime Stoppers of Niagara. Today we have Chair Ernie Sibbett, and he'll provide the board with a presentation on Crime Stoppers of Niagara, a nonprofit community-based charitable program involving cooperative efforts of the community, the media, and the police in the fight against crime. Ernie, come on up. Good seeing you again.
Chair Steele, can I just, for one brief interjection here, I mentioned to Member D'Angelo that we had a number where members of the public can call in a tip, and I just wanted to provide that NRPS traffic hotline. The number is 905-688-4111. And if they call extension 102 5555. And or they can also be emailed to traffic complaints, all one word, at niagarapolice.ca.
Great, thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, can you just read that extension again? I didn't.
Extension is my apologies. The extension is 102-5555. And on that link on our website, we also have an online form that can be filled out. So there's 3 options there.
Great, thanks. Ernie, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Apparently I'm the only one playing golf today, but I wish you guys probably wish you were with me. But anyway, on behalf of Crime Stoppers and all of us that work on the board, we really appreciate the opportunity to come and address you, even though it's a short period of time. We have prepared a booklet that we'd like to send to the board members explaining the entire program that we do. And what we do also in the Niagara with the Niagara housing and things like that with presentations. So we thank you for letting us come. Usually I have somebody doing this for me, but it's got to be me. It's okay. That's okay. I presentation just shows, but I can just talk about it if that's all right. There we go. Thank you. Oh, there he is. I've been chairman. I've been a member of the board for 12 years. I have been through a lot of things without the support of this panel and the chief, who is a real good friend of Crime Stoppers. We couldn't exist. It's that plain and simple. Without what the region does for us, we couldn't exist. And so what happens is we went through our website to clean it up, seeing that the police car we had on there was an OPP car and some other things there. We said, whoa, we got to get rid of that. So that will be done today. So if anybody has seen our site, it's there. And like it's there. That's okay. I usually throw that at people. Okay. So anyway, we're a non-profit community service. What is Crime Stoppers? I think everybody knows if you see something, hear something, we say, call us. It's anonymous, and we'll send it to our police officer that takes all our tips and does the investigations and takes care of it for us. And it's very successful. And it's people realize now, and you hear the chief talking, crime has not stopped. The pandemic slowed everything down but crime. And believe it or not, there's more shoplifting now and things like that in crime in the area because people are having trouble affording things like groceries. So it happens and we can't get away from that. What is Crime Stoppers? It's a community program run by a volunteer board of directors. We are a working board, so we do our due diligence and we're at all events that we do. And saying that there's a lot to go. All over the world, you can see that we've received 2.1 million cases worldwide since 1976. That's when it started. We know it started in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when a young 20-year-old gentleman was, his name was Michael Cameron, about to get married the next day. They robbed the garage and they killed him. And so they didn't have any way, no tips had come in. So Greg McAleese, who was working in the sheriff's department there, he was a Canadian, had come up with this idea he'd tried to push before about using video and reenactments to try and solve the crime. So he did this. The chief told him he didn't have any money and he did it out of his own pocket. And he was kind of nervous about what was going to happen. That day, not only did they solve the murder, they solved 24 other unsolved crimes from people calling in about tips, seeing they could call anonymous. And that's how it started. And from there, it came to Canada actually in 1983. And we became part in 1987. Is a board of people from the Niagara region, mayors. I'm not sure if anybody was on that search committee that is here today that try to find out whether we should have Crime Stoppers in the area or not. And what happened was the Niagara region decided that we should, and they've been supporters of ours, and we've been partners with the police since then, and good partners, and try to do everything we can to help. That's sort of our job, right? And we take the crimes. I was fortunate. We have a TV show at Crime Stoppers, and I have people here that have been on it. The chief's on it. Bill's on it, has come, and so has the gentleman from Waynfleet, and does a real good job in the area, and we really promote the police. That's the number one thing, the police in the Niagara region. So that, saying that, what's happened is we do give cash awards, and people don't understand this. It's from 200 to 2,000. We have in the past, since I've been on the board, given away 8 $2,000 tips, and that is for murder. And if you don't pick it up, which believe me, most people that turn in somebody for murder don't want the reward. They're doing it because it's an easy way for them to come and be a witness without being a witness. So after saying that, the $200, well, that's good. Hey, if you see somebody on the most wanted, Niagara's wanted from the police, turn them in, they get a $250 reward. So it's that simple. And that's how the program does work. I want to change course now to another thing that we do. I was approached about, when did Chief McGuire retire? 2017, I was approached by a financial advisor from Niagara-on-Lake. And he said to me, he said, we need Crime Stoppers. And I sort of met with him and I'm saying, okay, what's the thing? He says, we need to have an anonymous way to get information about elder abuse. Because he works in the field and works with elders, and because of his job, if something's happening, he can't give information. So he wanted some way that he could do it anonymously. So I talked to the board and our board said, yeah, let's go for it. So unfortunately, I got the position of chairing the committee. And what happened was we met with Chief McGuire and we explained if we wanted to do chief initiative 1 and 2. Number 1 would be elder abuse. And we met with him. We also met with everybody in the Niagara area that had anything to do with elder abuse. And Jeff couldn't make it that day, but fortunately for us, Brian could. And that's the first time I met Brian. He came and spoke at the event and it was terrific. So what happened was we carried on, we applied for grants to try and prove what we could do. And it took us a long time to get it because we had to keep changing the grant and making it better. But we did receive a grant, a seed grant from the Trillium Fund to prove our theory. And we did do that. It took us until this year to finish it because of COVID and other things, but we did. But when I met with Brian, when he became chair, I met with him and Dion McParland. And Brian wanted to know how we were going to be able to take tips and deal with it, because the problem is any tip that comes in that's criminal has to go to the police. We have no say of going anywhere. So it automatically goes to the police. However, if it's something that needs to be dealt with by somebody in the community, then it'll come from us and Dion McParland. She's the expert in elder abuse in the Niagara. As a matter of fact, she's chair of the Niagara Elder Abuse Program. And she's the one that will send it to where it's supposed to go through Mark Minot, who is a great guy that takes our tips and sends it out. So this is a program that evolved with Crime Stoppers and with the support of Chief McCullough, we were able to get our grant. And then we did a Beware Take Care program that originally come from the Niagara Regional Police back in 1988, I think is the original one. And we were given a grant to rewrite that. It's called Beware Take Care. If you haven't seen it, we have copies for the board members that we brought with us to see what is in there. Niagara Regional Police play a big part in that program. You're mentioned, told to call, what to do, and we have that for you today. We also want to mention that we do a lot of things in the region with regional housing and things where we go and do presentations to the people about safety and what to do, and it's very successful. When we're going to send you the complete program we wanted to deliver to each one of the members of the board so you can read entirely. We have it all there, but it's just that we couldn't come and talk to you today and do that much discussion. So we will be sending that through Mandy, and hopefully she'll distribute it to each person. And once you read it all, if you have any other questions, we will gladly come back and answer them. But it is more involved than just what I've been talking about. Without the support of the chief, I don't know where we'd be. He's just a terrific guy. And not only that, he calls a spade, so that's good. I can deal with that, even though I beat him at golf, but I wasn't going to mention that, Brian, but can't hit as far as him, but I beat him. But anyway, in a gist for the time I had, that's basically what we're doing. I enjoy having people from the police board and Brian and his area coming on our TV shows so that we can introduce you guys to the people. I mean, we all hear who you are, like people here, everybody knows Bob Gale, right? But how many people really know who Bob Gale is? They see his service stations and his stuff. So when you hear his name, oh yeah, that's it. But no, he's far more than that. And so I would like to have you guys on so you can do that. It just takes half hour of your time and it's painless. Right, Bill?
You're correct. It was a lot of fun, actually. Got
Except
a lot of
for-
information out.
It was funny. I was sort of in a hurry to go see Bill. He was there. I was running late. And because I have Crime Stoppers on my car, I got pulled over by a police officer. And it wasn't for the Crime Stoppers on my car, but he said he couldn't read my license plate. So it was a good thing. And he explained to me, I do this. And he says, oh, by the way, I see you're with Crime Stoppers. And I said, yeah, I am. And he says, well, what do you do? I said, well, I'm chairman of the board. And he goes, oh, that's great. And he says, oh, I'm not going to fine you, but go and get your license done. And he gave me a warning. And so I have to phone the station and say, I'm late. I've been pulled over by the police and I'm going through this thing. By the time I got there, Bill and Richard were laughing so hard, they couldn't wait to see me come in there. And it was quite funny that day, but I appreciate it. I got a new plate, so it works out all right. But does anybody have any questions?
Board members? Go ahead, Tara. Go ahead.
First, thank you so much for your presentation, and also thank you for the volunteer work that we've seen the stats, and it's obviously making an impact on the community. So my question and another piece was, it was really good to hear that the humanity incentive is still stronger than the monetary incentive for keeping our community safe. So thank you for sharing that. My question is helping myself and our community understand what a caller could expect when they call the line. And the reason I ask is because it's advertised as anonymous, but at the same time, there's awards. So I imagine there's some question about how do I get an award but remain anonymous? So I just wonder about giving a description of what a caller to the line can expect to increase that comfort in making those.
When you get a call, and if it's outside of hours, it goes to our 1-800 number, which Mark gets first thing in the morning when he comes to work. So he goes through any tips that have come in during the night and he deals with them, with what they say. But if somebody calls and Mark answers, he makes it plain that it's anonymous, because a lot of people want to give their names and to make sure, I guess, I get a reward, I guess. But so he tells them, we cannot know who you are. It's against all that's happened in the courts that we know who the person is that gives the tip. We're not even allowed to have a phone that displays what the number's coming in. You go in and it's still a phone you got to dial. So that's something that's guaranteed through the appeals court when somebody tried to get information from us. So that's how it goes. And he tells them, here's a number. He registers them, 1, 2, 3, 4. Call us back within 6 weeks and we should have information about your tip. So it's up to them to call us back. When they call back and they say number 1, 2, 3, 4, then Mark says, we have a reward for you and you can pick it up at, and they walk into a bank or the credit union. They go to the service desk and they say Crime Stoppers 1, 2, 3, 4. They're handed an envelope and they leave. The envelope's got cash in it. And that's how we do it. And we do everything that remains absolutely anonymous. We are having an issue now with somebody that I don't want to get into it because Mark's working at figuring this one out. But there was a chain of events. He gave a statement at the scene of the crime, and then he called Crime Stoppers and expects a reward. Once he testified, he's not eligible for reward. He's now a witness. And it's hard because sometimes they don't believe it. You know, they think we're trying to scam them, but we're working on this to find out really what happened. But so it is there, and it's very important that we do not know who the person is. But we take all the information, and Mark has a computer program, and he puts data in about the crime, and the program actually gives him what a reward should be within a guideline. Then with the severity, and if there's weapons or children involved, Mark may suggest a bigger reward. The board decides, and that's how the reward comes. But basically, that's how easy it is to do.
Great. Jen?
Thank you so much for the presentation. Just looking at the slides here and I see that the statistics for Niagara are since 2000. I'm just wondering if it would be possible when you send us your updated program to let us know the last 1, 3, and 5 years so that we can see the impact, obviously due to COVID and everything else. We understand that it would be.
Yes, we will. Apparently, there was some gap in reporting. Okay, but we do have it now because Mark's been staying on it pretty good. So now we have that. That will be included for you. And that's all I can say. We will include that. Just please read that report because it explains everything we do, how we started. But we are now a big entity in the elder abuse program. And so it's still come with the chief. I liked it when it was the chief's initiative 1 and 2, but getting to child abuse, I don't think we ever will. It took us so long to get going with elder abuse that we'll have to start all over again. But we like to do as much as we can for the Niagara region.
Perfect. I have one more question.
Yeah.
So Chief McCullough had talked about requiring the public's help in a specific situation
Yep.
here where wanting more young victims to come forward.
Yep.
Is that something that Crime Stoppers shares on their social media
We
or on their website or some other
We
way? to
do
get the-
share it. And here's what happens. Sarah Stevens, our administrative coordinator, she tracks it and shares it as best she can. If she's away on holidays or something, unfortunately, she's the one that does it. But anytime she checks all the time to put stuff up. If the police are really looking for somebody and want us to do something, if Brian wants something done, he'll contact us. Or we'll get it from Stephanie and she'll send it to us. We would like to have everything automatically sent to us that we can put it out right away no matter what it is. But I think there's logistical problems with that because I don't think it can be done. But we would do that without batting an eye.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the
You're welcome.
presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none? Ernie, great having you here.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much
it.
for having us here and we appreciate it. And we appreciate all the good work you guys are doing. And thank you.
Good. At this time, if I could have members D'Angelo and Gail move to receive the presentation. Are there any questions? All, or anyone opposed? That's carried. Next, we have item 7.2, community-oriented engagement and response, better known as the core unit. We have Inspector Mario Lagarteria of 2 District, Niagara Regional Police Service, and he'll provide the board with a presentation on the service's newly formed community orientation response and engagement core unit, which is focused toward youth engagement, community outreach, and problem-oriented policing. Mario, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Chair and members of the Police Services Board. Just going to wait for my presentation to key up here for you.
Chair, while the presentation is queued up, I've got some of the answers that member D'Angelo was seeking with regards to our past year's traffic safety day. So in 2018, there were 83 tickets plus 55 warnings that were issued. 2019, there were 73 tickets and 89 warnings issued. 2020, there were 32 tickets and 112 warnings issued. 2021, there were 62 tickets and 23 warnings. And in 2022, this most recent back to school day, there were 67 tickets and 30 warnings that were issued. So that total is 317 tickets and 309 warnings over that time frame.
Oh, thank you, Chief. I didn't expect you to have the numbers so quickly. So my compliments to you and your staff for putting that together. And it shows that we're trending a little bit downwards, but it depends on how many officers you put out. But it's I'm glad you're doing that because, you know, if we could get people changing their habits, it will be safer for everyone. So I appreciate that and appreciate the number so quickly. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, I can start even before they get it set up, just to put some context onto who I am. So I'm Inspector Mario Libertaria. I oversee district operations here in 2 district. I'm one of 3 inspectors who are district commanders, Rob LaPlante being inspector in St. Catharines at a 1 district, as well as Sandy Staniforth in 3 district. So the 3 of us more or less split the region into thirds, the eastern, central, and western regions. And we now have these core units available to us that work as part of a joint community liaison in addition to our administrative functions, just to kind of put things into perspective. So a little bit of background with regards to our core unit. The Niagara Regional Police Service continuously explores avenues to enhance community engagement. So various societal issues and circumstances triggered a review of our community engagement model, and a need for change was identified. So opportunities to expand the scope of community engagement were identified and specifically linked to our Niagara Community Safety and Wellbeing plans, our Niagara Regional Police Service strategic plan, the implementation of potential situation tables or focus groups, as well as provincial funding and grant opportunities. This all being possible while maintaining those administrative functions where we have our community liaison type officers dealing with larger demonstrations, large community events, as well as coordinating any complaints, local complaints that come through our respective districts. So in April of 2022, earlier this year, 6 months ago, the Niagara Regional Police Service launched the Community-Oriented and Response Engagement Unit. Community-Oriented Response and Engagement Unit, better known as CORE, so I'll refer to it as CORE as we move. It's a 12-month pilot project. This new model is heavily linked to district operations, provides a cohesive approach to community engagement across the Niagara region. The fact that they are based within these 3 districts, tied very close to frontline operations, similar to our detective offices, similar to like our CIB and our street crime, we're able to interact very closely with our frontline officers and ensure that we kind of, as a group, work together to deal with community issues. So the creation of CORE has allowed us that unification, which was previously known as our Community Engagement Unit. So prior to April of 2022, we had a Community Engagement Unit, which was a centralized unit. And then we had our administrative units within our individual districts dealing with local community issues, and they've now come together. So by bringing these resources together, we're better able to engage with youth, engage in community outreach, and focus on problem-oriented policing through a district-level community-oriented response and engagement unit to directly address community issues. So we have the resources in place to actually tackle community issues. So officers involved in this 12-month pilot project were chosen following a solicitation of interest. The bulk of them came from the previous community engagement unit, as well as the community liaison officers that were already within the actual administrative units, all with a passion for community policing in general. So these are officers that are willing and wanting to do this type of work. As I mentioned, core units are based out of 1, 2, and 3 district, reporting to sergeants through to the respective district commanders. So myself, Rob LaPlante, and Sandy Staniforth, and then up through to our superintendent of district operations. So officers can be utilized within their respective areas, or they can be pulled together for larger initiatives throughout the region. So we've seen larger community scaled events, potential demonstrations, where we're able to then pool all these officers, and then with those numbers, better able to address any community concern. So in total, core units are comprised of 3 sergeants and 15 constables, with staffing coming from those existing resources, repurposed from our former community engagement unit, as well as those district administration units. So officers within the core unit, they act as leads for service-wide initiatives. They provide frontline support. They can respond to calls for service requiring added time and resources, ensuring frontline policing resources remain available for emergency response. We are called for various complaints throughout the region, a lot of them very time consuming. So these officers are able to put the time into addressing those root issues while frontline officers remain available for those emergency calls. With, as mentioned, the goal to address those root causes in order to resolve situations through community mobilization. And this is also in line with the Ontario mobilization and engagement model for community policing. So there's a core vision. The vision really from a wider lens is to reaffirm our commitment to youth engagement, community-centric policing, and strengthening our working relationships with community stakeholders. We want to foster relationships between the Niagara Regional Police Service and the community through a focused attention to community engagement and crime prevention. Crime prevention being very key to this unit as well, offering education, both proactively and reactively, to build and support relationships to identify, strategize, and solve community problems. And of course, the goal to increase safety and well-being for residents and visitors within the Niagara region. So our core officers, they liaise with various stakeholders currently, include local politicians, community partners, social services, business improvement associations, in addition to school boards and any type of partner agency that we would potentially interact with. Actively engaged in crime prevention strategies, as I mentioned, which include performing foot, bike, and ATV patrols in designated areas, and provide public education by delivering presentations to focus groups. So here we do have some pictures, a little feel-good pictures, but these officers are able to put that time and effort into complaints we actually get. So they are able to use those ATVs to respond to calls, in addition to any extra shifts that we're able to pool on weekends. They're on bikes quite often, especially through the summer, the bulk of them being trained in bike patrol and dealing with off-road vehicles, as well as going through areas that are a little bit harder to get to, parks. There's a picture there of Clifton Hill. Very active on the bikes, engaged with community members, interacting with community members. It's a great opportunity for the members of the public to see us in a different light. And at the same time, provide a little education. And then they do give out quite a bit of crime prevention strategies. So in July of 2022, speaking of crime prevention through environmental design, which is commonly known as CEPTED, training was provided to many of our core officers. In fact, we actually extended the invitation to local municipalities for members of planning and development units to attend our Welland facility. It was a week training, and more or less the training revolves around the idea that we can design or change the environmental structure as a crime prevention technique. So these CEPTED trained officers, they offer now these crime prevention strategies, both proactively and reactively, depending on how they come to find a scene. And I'm going to go back there. This is maybe not the best to see, but this is a perfect example. It's in Niagara Falls. We had a call for service with regards to some suspicious people hanging out in the foliage, very concealed. And so the top picture is what it looked like prior to. Officers, core officers that were dispatched to the call, not only did they deal with the situation at hand, but then they took a step back and said, well, we have this training, let's see what we can do. So they got the property owners involved through the cities, and they decided that, well, if we clear some foliage and better the sight lines, we then remove an area of concealment. In addition to that, they discuss options with regards to cameras, extra lighting, things like that. But a lot of little things that property owners usually know about, but sometimes they get neglected. Sometimes there's never an issue because there's never a complaint there. But when we do have a complaint area, we're aware. And then those are the officers that would be in a position to provide that advice and suggestions for crime prevention. So the core unit, in addition to the CEPTED, there are a few other crime prevention initiatives that they're heavily involved with. Garage 529, which is a bike registry. So it's an app where members of the public can register their bike. They're provided with stickers to actually tag their bikes. It does help in the end if something were to happen to it for recovery, but in addition, that being tagged, it's the idea of it being a deterrent as well if their bike were to be stolen. Of course, our Lock It or Lose It campaign, which more or less stresses the importance of using the locks on vehicles to lock your vehicle. Also hiding valuables or removing valuables from your car just in case they get more or less entered, unlocked. So they're heavily involved with that and promoting that campaign, as well as Stop Hate Niagara, regional campaign, more or less for the education of what actually hate crime and hate incidents are, and the idea that the public should be reporting these things. So they're heavily involved with that, very linked to our equity, diversity, inclusion unit as well, these officers. So in addition to all these crime prevention initiatives, we do also address local area complaints reported through the respective district commander. So to remember D'Angela's point earlier when you asked about traffic areas, should there be a complaint area when my officers do have the resources in addition to our traffic enforcement unit? Staff Sergeant Paul Webb's there as well. They'll usually coordinate an effort when to target those complaint areas. So it's more or less that, not that one time. We're there regularly to really focus on that specific area. In addition, we liaise with regions, homeless services, community engagement personnel, and part of the homeless outreach. We liaise with municipal law enforcement, city roads and maintenance crews, as well as partners such as Niagara Assertive Street Outreach. So our NASA, we're heavily involved with them, providing more or less a secondary role and a safety piece, not only to the members working with those partner agencies, but also to the people who are, we like to call living rough, to ensure that they're safe, to ensure that they have a way of reporting things through to us. They feel comfortable with us as well. So with regards to CORE, in addition, there's a heavy focus on community and youth engagement. Currently, there's Niagara Safety Village in Welland that we are actively involved with. Those are CORE officers that assist there. We did have our Niagara Regional Police Service Wendy's Restaurant Positive Ticking campaign, which rewarded and recognized youth in the area for safety related to bike and water. Project Impact, which sees school-aged teens, 12 to 15 years old roughly, that we hope to start back up. It was suspended during the pandemic, but it had at-risk identified students after school hours on weekends coming together with Brock mentors, and police officers would then engage with them, usually participate in some sort of physical activity, but in addition to providing them with certain presentations to help them as well, whether it's cyberbullying, cybercrime, opioid and drug use. Again, that opportunity to see police in a different light. Our CORE officers are also heavily involved with equity, diversity and inclusion unit outreach, as well as Indigenous outreach. Here's some more pictures. We have the top with the officer in the bike helmet, and then the next one with the police vehicle and the children inside. That was all part of the Positive Ticking campaign with Wendy's Restaurant. And then some Indigenous outreach with Soaring Eagles, as well as down at the Niagara Region Native Center. There was a backpack campaign. Our CORE officers have the time, the ability, and they're more or less building these relationships to just strengthen that bond, break that barrier to hopefully put us in a position where if the relationship's there, then we can have that open dialogue to just address the needs, but appropriately as well. So we have the future of CORE. It is a one-year project. There is a review that will be conducted. We review performance metrics, both qualify and quantify responsibilities of the unit. CORE initiatives continue to be showcased. So any of you following social media, very active through 1 district, 2 district, 3 district social media accounts, as well as our Niagara Regional Police social media account. The CORE unit is, as I mentioned, in pilot phase, so it does continuously evolve and will more or less adapt to the community needs. I do have some statistics as well, just prior to ending, with more or less the caveat that the success we've seen in the last 6 months has really nothing to do with me and the district commanders. It's the sergeants out there. We have 3 exceptional sergeants leading each unit: Sergeant Virginia Moyer, Sergeant Aaron Mandill, and Sergeant Jeff Levins, and an abundance of officers, like I said, who have a passion for community policing, community involvement. And these officers have just embraced their new role, and they impress me every day with what they're doing, coming back. And so with regards to some statistics, just in the last 6 months, specifically CORE has conducted just shy of 900 hours of foot patrols, just shy of 300 hours bicycle patrols, close to 1,300 hours of actively investigating incidences, calls for service, but did divert 1,028 calls from the front line, which is quite a bit when you consider over the last 6 months. They continue to do step-test assessments. They liaise with our CIB offices, our crime analysts. Should a break and enter happen in a specific area and there's something that they could do, they will follow up with the complainant to see if there's any adjustments, modifications that can be done in addition to their just day-to-day actively finding things, and then through their interactions with specific people. That's all I have for you right now. Hopefully you enjoyed the presentation. Like I said, I do appreciate the time, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Great. Thank you, Inspector. Questions? Member Gibson?
Thank you, Chair. Excellent presentation, Mario. Thank you very much. Just a few things I'd like to flesh out a little bit. So it's 15 regular members and 3 staffs. Are you in 3 teams in each of the districts, or do you come together for a big event? Can you just explain a little bit how that works?
So the 1 district core unit has 1 sergeant. They actually have 8 constables assigned to that unit currently. So they have 2 teams of 4. In 1 district, in 2 district, we have a team of 5 reporting to 1 sergeant, but they have day shift and afternoons as well, which I didn't mention, which provides a little bit of flexibility to address issues, not just early morning, but also into the evening and late hours. And 3 district, there are 3 officers right now. 2 of them are part of core. 1 is in accommodated fashion, providing that ability, reporting through a sergeant, with 3 district also having our auxiliary unit, which is kind of linked to what we could potentially use core for. But they report through separate chains of command. So the sergeant, I'll use Aaron Medill, for example, he's my sergeant in 2 district. He reports directly to me. But should an event happen, between myself, Rob LaPlante, and Sandy Staniforth, the district commanders, we very easily pool our resources together to address any larger scale event, in addition to including frontline or outsourcing to other units as well. So separate currently, but easily to pull together.
Thank you. And that's probably one of the keys to success of it, is the ability to be flexible by the hour when things happen and bring teams together, spread them out. Excellent, excellent initiative. So I guess the one thing is the resources are all full-time. And so were the patrol teams shortened by a body or 2, the regular patrol? I know there's an offset by the Corps taking calls and that sort of thing, but is it impacted at all the rest of the officers?
The creation of this unit used existing resources. So prior to coming together, the community engagement unit had 9 constables and a sergeant. And then the administrative district units, there was 2 other sergeants, as well as 6 constables, actually authorized strength within each unit, and they were pulled together. So we didn't necessarily create any new to steal from the front line or pull from the front line. The officers within the unit, some of them did come from the front line to fill them, but they were legitimate spots that we didn't create. We didn't borrow, by no means. No, we wanted to use current. The last thing we want to do is take from our front line.
Okay, and just final comment, I'm really impressed. It's an excellent initiative, and the ability to be mobile and to go where needed at a moment's notice is really an important aspect of policing, and it's really good. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Member McKendrick?
Thank you. And through you, Chair, thank you for the presentation. Really impressed and love seeing the proactive relationship building and the examples of where minor tweaks can often make a very big impact. So thank you for that. And I'm wondering how to report. So when we talk about the specific initiatives such as Stop Hate Niagara, recognizing that it may not always be a 911 call and wanting to reduce unnecessary 911 calls, just wondering how the public would make those reports.
So I do know through our corporate communications where there's some messaging that went out, we can get that to provide as well. Are non-emergency communications, but there is a separate line as well with regards to that Stop Hate through our equity, diversity, inclusion unit as well. But there is, I believe, a specific way to report, which I can get for you as well. I don't have that handy with me. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Member Gale.
Thank you, and thank you, Mario, for the presentation. I know you highlighted the picture of the bicycle going down Clifton Hill. I'd like to see the same picture of the bicycle going up Clifton Hill. But regardless of that, I'm so proud to have been on the selection committee of this senior team years ago, because the biggest issue was community engagement, and they all met the test on that. And matter of fact, one of them, I won't say who, when we were talking about opioids, said we can't arrest our way out of it. That comment alone told me that this team is involved in community, and as a result, this happens. So I would like you to expand a bit, please, and you did somewhat on this. Years ago, I kept saying we got to park the, I use the line, we got to park the damn cruisers and get out and meet the people. Pardon for my language. And do you do that as much? I know it's staffing, there's a lot of issues at hand there, but I'm talking about one of the reasons we brought these things on was the east side of Port Colborne. There was problems there, and we said, can the officers park their cruisers there and do the reports rather than going to behind a mall somewhere or stuff like this? I'd like you to talk about that, please, with regards to parking in downtown Beamsville or something like this and getting out and meeting the people. Because the comments made then was when you meet the people, they come up with ideas of who's done something wrong or done something right and things like this, please.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. So I've had the luxury of not only being a district commander here in Niagara Falls, but also out in Welland, where we've initiated not just through CORE, but initiatives for the front line as well, whether it be individual foot patrols, where they have to then park, get through, meet the public, engage, interact. We do receive calls at times from certain areas requesting obviously a police presence, which we do relay to our frontline officers. Sometimes you're absolutely right. It's just simply a police cruiser sitting in a parking lot. Through our crime analysts in each of our districts as well, we do more or less review our stats and to see if there is a trends in crime. And we do make sure the officers are aware of that as well for that specific reason. Their police cruiser is their office. And for them to be in their office, putting up a report that absolutely could be done anywhere. So that messaging is brought through for our frontline. The advantage of having the CORE officers is we have that added flexibility where we're able to actually go and not worry about that emergency call for service. Now, granted, should an emergency call for service, the CORE officers will be dropping everything they do to respond. But yeah, 100%, that's very, very important. And that's really what we more or less preach to the officers involved in CORE, the idea that it's been years since that this has really happened, and it's of no fault of anything. It's just, I think it's just a change. There's a high call volume. There's a different need for police. There's also a different perception of police as well, right? Some people will still embrace, and luckily we live in a Niagara region which is very pro-police and engagement, and our officers get to see it firsthand, and it's infectious. So not only do they come back to the office and talk about these great stories of interacting with BIAs, interacting with community partners, but our frontline hear it as well. And step by step, I fully believe we're moving in that direction. And as district commanders, I mean, I won't speak for Rob and Sandy, but I know they'd be on board as well. Should the opportunity for us to ensure that happens, then absolutely we'd have vehicles in high crime areas, or if not, just areas where police presence would be welcome.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Further questions? Member D'Angelo.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I don't specifically have a question, but thank you for the presentation. Just wanted to highlight an event I saw, which I thought was pretty positive. Focuses on your community and youth engagement. I was going through the intersection of Collier and Richmond, if you're familiar with that, in Thorold Richmond Street School there. This was during the summertime. There was a young girl, probably about 4 years old, holding her dad's hand, crossing the street, and a police car was turning left the other way. She was actually waving to the police car in a positive fashion. So I thought that was pretty neat that she recognized the police car, which was the black and white, and acknowledged it and was waving to it. So your community and youth engagement is definitely working, but because she actually made contact with the car and was waving. I also like the fact that you're doing the positive ticketing campaign using Wendy's restaurant or anyone else. Usually a lot of people, when they get tickets from the police officers, it's a negative, but it's nice to have something on the opposite where you're doing positive. And I've always seen that through our community policing in Thorold. Many years ago, they did that. And I think it makes a positive impact, especially on the youth. You know, if you stop them and give them a ticket and it's something for an ice cream, or if it's something for Wendy's, it's I think that has a lasting impact on the youth, and that'll carry forward for quite a long time. So I applaud all the work you do, and especially with the youth engagement. I think it'll make a difference going into the future years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, Inspector, thank you. Great program.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
So if we could have members Gibson and Lawson move that we receive the presentation. Anyone opposed? That's carried. We have our consent agenda, item 8. We have items 8.1 through to 8.5. If I could have members McKendrick and D'Angelo move that this information be received. Are there any questions on any specific items? Anyone against moving these? That's carried. New business, we have the Ministry of Solicitor General Guns, Gangs and Violence Grant Funding Approval. Moved by members Gale and Gibson. That the board approved the 2022-2023 Guns, Gangs and Violence Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement between the Ministry of the Solicitor General and the Niagara Regional Police Services Board, and further that the board chair be authorized to execute all required documentation. Questions? Anyone opposed? That's carried. 9.2, Police Services Board 2023 proposed meeting schedule. Moved by members Lawson and McKendrick that the board approve the schedule of regular meetings for the Niagara Police Services Board and committee meetings for the year of 2023 as presented. Questions? Opposed? It's carried. 9.3, Police Services Board bylaw special paid duty rates for the years 2022 to 2026. Moved by members D'Angelo and Gale that the board adopt bylaw 397-2022 as appended to the report and authorize the board chair and executive director to execute the required documentation, and further that staff be directed to ensure that all documentation be revised accordingly. Questions? Member Gale.
Thank you. And through you to the chief, am I to presume that the rates of increase on this, if there is rates of increase, went up according to the contract?
Chief?
Through you, Chair, that's correct. It's in keeping with the collective agreement increases over the next, I guess now remaining 5 years of the contract.
So no more, no less. That's
correct.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Anyone opposed to this? That's carried. 9.4, Police Services Board bylaw update to NRPS schedule of fees and charges, moved by members Gibson and Lawson. That the board approve revised bylaw 398-2022, a bylaw to provide for the imposition of charges for police services as appended to the report, and authorize the board chair and executive director to execute the required documentation, and further that the revised bylaw be provided to Niagara Regional Council for its information. Questions? Opposed? Carried. 9.5, purchase order issuance to Lighting Equipment Sales Inc., moved by members McKendrick and D'Angelo. That the board approve the issuance of a $250,000 purchase order for Lighting Equipment Sales Inc. for the annual purchase of various special equipment installed in police vehicles. Questions? Member Gibson.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Is this additional new technology equipment, or are we simply replacing some other equipment that's aged out?
Chief?
Through you, Chair, it's the existing, replacing the existing light bars that are on our vehicles.
Okay, was my only question from that one. Thank you.
Member Gale.
Thank you. Through you to the chief. Chief, is this report or is this item time sensitive?
Through you, Chair, I guess I need to understand what you mean by time sensitive.
Everyone knows in this Niagara region that I go after procurement, and that I go after, as soon as I see the word sole sourcing, any hair I've got left on my head stands up. And in this case here, I understand it says this is the only company I think that can provide this. I'm not going into the report again.
Right.
But are there other companies that could be around that do provide this? And somewhere here, I've got all my questions on it, but regardless, in the interest of the public, I would be saying the same thing at the Niagara region. We should tender this out. And if only this is the company that responds to it and it's not time sensitive, then it's a fair system. If there's other companies that might be in Cucamonga that can provide this, we should allow that out there for them to provide this. So if you said to me, this is time sensitive, we need it in 1 week, then I guess I have to bend. But other than that, on behalf of the public, I think this should be tendered, please.
Chief.
So through you, Chair, just with regards to the public interest, I totally understand and appreciate. And that's really where the police cooperative purchasing group comes in, where that organization or association attempts to procure the best pricing for police services across the province, and you know, not just the Niagara Regional Police Service. So this is an example where that has taken place, and this really is the only viable option. The best equipment that meets our needs is aligned with what our Occupational Health and Safety Committee has recommended, the Equipment Committee has recommended, So again, I understand your concern, and I know that that's always been a passion of yours. But I think what we're bringing forward here is the best solution, the most cost-effective solution for the taxpayers of Niagara, as well as other communities in the province.
So through you, Chair, I think you answered that great, because therefore you're telling me there's a purchasing group over and above that does procure this out, and this is the best option.
That's correct.
Good, thank you.
Great, thank you. Oh, okay, great, thank you. Any further questions? Anyone? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Member Gibson?
just on, I had a question as well, but just along Member Gale's questioning. So does virtually everybody in Ontario belong to that purchasing group? Therefore, this company supplies pretty much all of Ontario's lighting needs for emergency vehicles?
Chief?
So the Police Cooperative Purchasing Group, I believe that every police service in the province is a part of that, or at least has the opportunity to be a part of that group and to benefit from the procurement opportunities that are available through that group, whether it's through police uniforms, whether it's through the acquisition of firearms or any other equipment that police services utilize. And I think uniformity across the province assists not only for the public to understand so that they see the same things in different jurisdictions, but again, the benefits for all jurisdictions to be able to get the best pricing for equipment. In this case, that's the case with the light bars.
And just simply, if I may, Chair, simply to the public, then we are safeguarding their tax dollars to the best we can by belonging to this purchasing group, and we're working very diligently to spend our money properly and efficiently on behalf of the taxpayer. So thank you.
Great, thank you. You're okay? All right, further questions? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Item 9.6. VMware Enterprise Licensing Agreement by members Gale and Gibson, that the board approve the renewal of VMware ELA quote number Q-E00385342 between the Niagara Regional Police Service and VMware International Unlimited Company for a total of 3-year fixed amount of $548,125.44 plus applicable taxes in U.S. currency as appended to the report. And further, the chief of police be authorized to execute all required documentation on behalf of the board. Questions? Anyone opposed? That's carried. 9.7 is special fund request, the NRPA Charity Golf Tournament. Moved by members Lawson and McKendrick that the board authorize a donation in the amount of $250 from the special fund to the Niagara Regional Police Association for its first annual Cliff Priest Memorial Golf Tournament. And there were previous donations to the same tournament in the past. Any questions? Member Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. And just as I always like to comment for the public, this is not taxpayer dollars that are being spent. Item 9.7 and 9.8 are monies that come to the police through different avenues of sourcing. So it's not your taxpayers doing this or tax dollars doing this. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Further questions? Anyone opposed? That's carried. 9.8 special fund request 2022 United Way campaign kickoff. Moved by members D'Angelo and Gale that the board authorize a donation of $3,000 from the special fund to cover the required fees to enter 2 teams in the fire truck pole event as part of the United Way Niagara 2022 campaign kickoff. Questions? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Any other new business? Member Gale.
Thank you. Through you to the chief, and I apologize for not bringing this to you in advance. I had it down as a note tonight so you could consider it, but I'm not in a hurry for the answer. We know there's a new diamond intersection on the Queenie at Glendale Avenue. And you remember a couple of years ago, or every year at Christmas time area for shopping, traffic is backed up over the Garden City Skyway to cut off the factory outlet malls. The OPP had said in the past, years ago, that they were going to shut that intersection down if the traffic got back up far enough, which means it would come to Mountain Road, or I guess up the 405 to Stanley Avenue. Are we, or can we talk to the OPP with this new intersection? Because I understand there's shutdowns coming out. I haven't followed it enough. We know it's going to be a mess for a year or two there. And a concern comes up in a month and a half's time, in November, whenever people start shopping for Christmas, that it's going to be lined up there again. And I'm afraid what I'm asking, Chief, is if somebody can talk to the OPP and say, what's the plans if it gets backed up there? Do we forecast that it's going to be backed up there? And what happens when they get off at Mountain Road or the Queenie, if that happens? Or is that not a concern?
Chief?
Through your chair, I believe Inspector Lagerteria is still in the room, so certainly I can have him reach out to the OPP. We've been communicating with the region, for some time now with regards to this new intersection. We will assist with public education regarding this new double diamond interchange. It is quite unique, first in Ontario, I think first in Canada for that matter. So it is definitely unique, and we will do our best to try and educate the public on how that will function. And again, it's hard to say what the impact will be from this, if it actually improves the flow of traffic or if it hampers the during that sort of work initiation phase, I guess. So we will connect with the OPP and determine what their plan is if and when they have to shut down traffic.
Thank you. And through you again, Chair, through you to Mario, if you don't mind. Mario, I fought to have those lights at Mountain Road put up, and I'm told that they're only up there while they shut down Glendale Avenue. But I know Commissioner Swanaga at the region is fighting to have those lights installed there permanently, or a set of lights there permanently. My concern is if they're going to shut down there and they're having lights there, this could really fester, especially November, December with the Christmas shopping. Now, I don't care if you email me back or whatever, but I just want to be proactive. It's September now, November, it's going to be a mess. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further new business? Seeing none, there are no in-camera reports today. So at this time, we'll adjourn this portion of the meeting. We thank everyone for watching virtually, and we thank staff and Chief and his deputies for being here today. And specifically, our two presenters were fantastic.